Wait, is this who we think it is? Mirabel, the most intelligent girl in university? Now a common construction worker?
Tasha, one of the 3 city's slay queens, said with a smile. Her voice dripped with mockery as she spotted a young woman in dusty construction clothes. Mirabel had just lifted another block onto her head when the sharp, cruel laugh made her turn. There, in a white, luxurious Mercedes-Benz, sat 3 of her old coursemates, dressed in expensive and glittering clothes and perfumes, their eyes dripping with mockery. Mimi gasped loudly, covering her mouth in fake shock. No way, that can't be Mirabel, our former coursemate, the so-called genius of the class. Geez, look at her now, mixing sand like an ordinary laborer. Kendi burst out laughing, pulling out her phone immediately. My God, it's really her, the Mirabel every lecturer used to praise, the one we were told would change the world, so this is what she finally became? A common construction worker under hot sun. Their laughter rang across the site, drawing stares from other workers. Mirabel froze where she stood, cement dust on her face. Tears welled in Mirabel's eyes. The humiliation was unbearable, and still they didn't show any sign of remorse. But what none of them knew was that the very woman they were mocking today was about to shock them in a way they would never forget. In the buzzing city of Lagos, where 3 young women, famous in their own way, were known by everyone as the Millionaire slay queens. Their names were Tasha, Mimi, and Kendi. Tasha was tall, with a skin that glowed like she had just stepped out of a beauty magazine. Her Instagram page was filled with pictures of her posing beside expensive cars, sipping cocktails in Dubai, and attending exclusive parties where only the rich were invited. Mimi was the loud one. Every time she stepped into a room, her laughter filled the air, and her long nails clicked against her phone as she posted updates online. She bragged about owning the latest phones and gadgets. She loved to boast about her designer bags, shoes, and wigs, and she was never shy to remind people that she only wore limited edition. Kendi, the 3rd, was the most cunning and sneaky. She had a sharp tongue and eyes that noticed everything. People said she had the ability to destroy someone's confidence with just a single comment. Her face was always twisted in disgust and pride. She lived in a high-rise apartment and drove an expensive Mercedes-Benz, but her greatest pride was the number of followers she had on social media. Together, these 3 were inseparable. Wherever one went, the other 2 followed, their perfumes always filling the air before their heels touched the floor. They were admired by many, feared by some, and envied by almost every young girl in their community. But not everyone admired them. Some remembered how they had been in the university just a few years earlier, ordinary students with nothing special. How they rose to fame still remains a mystery. Back then, there was another girl who studied with them. Her name was Mirabel. Mirabel was the opposite of the slay queens. She was quiet, often found in the library with her books. She was never interested in flashy clothes or expensive hair. Her dream was different. She wanted to become an engineer, someone who built things that lasted, not just things that glittered for the moment. But after graduation, life turned out differently for all of them. The 3 slay queens found their way into quick riches. No one knew exactly how they made their money, but they always had more than enough to flaunt. Expensive cars, vacations abroad, fine dining, designer brands, these things became their daily life. Mirabel, on the other hand, was nowhere near that lifestyle. After struggling to find a job in engineering, she had searched for openings and attended interviews, but all she got was rejection. She ended up working at a construction site. Yes, she carried cement on her head, mixed sand, and wore a yellow helmet that was often covered in dust. She worked long hours under the hot sun. Her hands became rough, her skin darkened, but her eyes still bright with determination. One Friday afternoon, fate brought them together. Tasha, Mimi, and Kendi were driving back from a spa in Lekki when they decided to take a detour through a new estate that was being developed. The site was busy with workers pushing wheelbarrows and carrying blocks. The air was filled with dust, and the sound of hammers echoed from every corner. Then suddenly, Tasha slowed her car and whispered, "Wait, is that not Mirabel?" The other 2 leaned forward. There, in the middle of the dusty site, was Mirabel, her blue overalls stained with cement, carrying a heavy block on her head. Sweat dripped down her forehead and her boots sank slightly into the muddy ground. For a moment, there was silence in the car. Then Mimi burst out laughing. "Ah, see our coursemate, the engineer of poverty. So this is what she has become?" She laughed mockingly. Kendi immediately brought out her phone. "I must record this. People need to see how our Madam First-Class graduate is now a hustling block carrier." Before Mirabel could even notice them, the three slay queens stepped out of their car. Their heels clicked against the ground as workers stopped to stare. It was not every day that women dressed in expensive silk gowns and carrying designer handbags walked into a construction site. "Mirabel," Tasha called out, her voice filled with mockery. "Long time no see, so this is where you are hiding, carrying blocks?" Mirabel froze. The cement block on her head suddenly felt heavier, but she did not reply. She simply placed it down carefully and wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. Mimi was already recording too, her phone aimed directly at Mirabel. "Smile for the camera, construction queen. And imagine, after 4 years in school, this is where you ended up. Such a shame." Some workers laughed quietly, while others looked away in pity. Mirabel bowed her head and kept her silence. But Kendi was not done. She stepped closer, her perfume smelled strong in the dusty air. "Tell me, Mirabel, do they pay you in blocks or cement? Or are you just doing free labor here?" she mocked. The slay queens burst into laughter. Even some passers-by stopped to watch, shaking their heads in pity. This moment, memories came rushing inside Mirabel. "Wait, Tasha," she called in a low voice. "You guys are literally locking me after everything I did for you three in school, after the times I helped all of you during exams. If it weren't for me, none of you would have been able to pass our final year exams. I helped you, and you promised in your own words that you won't forget it. And here you're mocking me." Her voice broke as she remembered everything. And not just that. There was another painful memory that came crushing inside Mirabel's chest, heavy and saddening. It was the memory of her mother dying in the hospital because there was no money for her medical bills during that final year. She had spent it in hunger and tears and still helped these three. "Oh, really?" Tasha mocked. "And you were foolish enough to believe us? Honestly, she's too dumb. How could you even think that we, girls of classy, will look towards your direction just because you stupidly helped us during exams? Babe, shoes have size, and you, even in the dream, you can't fit into ours," Mimi added. Mirabel felt her cheeks burn. She couldn't believe the words that were coming out of their mouths. She felt tears well in her eyes, but she quickly blinked, struggling to push them back, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. She lifted the block and placed it on her head and began to walk away. "Wait, don't go," Mimi shouted. "At least let us help our beloved friend. Or should we call you Cement Princess?" The three laughed so hard that their voices echoed through the site. By the time Mirabel reached the far end of the site, her heart was heavy and her eyes filled with tears. Not because of their words alone, but because she knew they had recorded her humiliation. And in less than an hour, her fear became reality. The video was posted online. Within minutes, it spread across Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp groups. The caption read, "From graduate to cement girl, see what life did to our coursemate." The comments poured in. "Oh my goodness, this life isn't fair. She should have joined them and slayed instead of suffering like this. It's not about being brilliant or graduating with first class. Take a look at how she ended. Hustle is hustle, but this one brings me to tears." Mirabel read some of the comments late that night, lying on her thin mattress in the small room she rented. Her eyes filled with tears, but she bit her lips to keep from sobbing aloud. She remembered her mother's words, "My daughter, never be ashamed of honest work. Shame belongs to those who live fake lives, but God will crown the efforts and hard work of an honest person." So she closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered to herself, "This is not the end of my story. Let them laugh. One day I will answer," but at that moment, she had no idea how close that one day really was. For now, it seemed far and even uncertain. The days after the video went viral were not easy for Mirabel. Everywhere she went, people whispered. Some pitied her, some laughed, and others simply stared as though she was carrying a curse. At the construction site, some workers began to call her Cement Queen instead of her real name. Yet Mirabel did not give up. Every morning, before the sun rose, she tied her hair neatly, put on her faded overalls, and marched to the site with quiet determination. Every bag she lifted, every block she touched, was teaching her something. She watched how foundations were dug, how walls were raised, how roofing was done. She listened closely when engineers explained designs to contractors, and at night, when other workers slept, she would open her small notebook and write down what she had observed that day. Her fellow site laborers laughed at her. "So you want to be an engineer with biro and dirty notes? Better face reality, Mirabel. This dream will not feed you and will take you nowhere." It was always a painful and heartbreaking experience for her, but she would only smile faintly and say, "One day these notes will build me something greater than food." Meanwhile, the three slay queens continued to live fake lives and rise in fame. Tasha bought a brand new Range Rover and posted pictures with the caption, "Hard work pays when you hustle smart, not hard." Mimi hosted a lavish birthday party at a popular club in Victoria Island, where champagne flowed like water and dollar bills were sprayed in the air. Kendi, as usual, dominated social media with her sharp tongue. She even used Mirabel's video as part of her comedy skits online. Ladies, don't end up like this. 4 years in university just to carry blocks? God forbid, she'll caption. The video gathered thousands of likes and laughing emojis, but beneath their glittering lives, cracks were beginning to appear. It was as if karma heard Mirabel's cries and the humiliation, repaying her good for them with shame and mockery. It started in an unexpected way. Tasha's sponsor, a married businessman who had been financing her trips and cars, was suddenly exposed in a fraudulent scandal. His accounts were frozen, and his wife threatened divorce. Overnight, Tasha's constant supply of cash began to dry up. Mimi, who had been running a boutique with money from an investor, discovered that her investor had disappeared with all the profits. The boutique remained, but debts piled up, and suppliers began to knock on her door and demand for their money. Kendi, though still smiling online, was fighting a silent battle. The rent for her high-rise apartment was overdue, and her landlord had given her a warning and a payment deadline, or she evicts his property. But none of them would admit weakness. Instead, they continued to mock Mirabel just to distract themselves from their own troubles. One Sunday afternoon, the three slay queens drove past the construction site again. There she is," Mimi pointed, laughing. Mirabel was standing on scaffolding, her face smeared with dust as she measured a wall. Kendi rolled down the window of her car and shouted, "Cement Queen, please don't fall down, oh, we don't want your dust to scatter in the air," she said in mockery. Tasha, trying to hide her own worries, pulled out her phone and snapped a photo of Mirabel. Within minutes, it was on Instagram with the caption, "Guys, don't make this kind of mistake. Hard work is good, but smart work is better. Some of us slay, others slave." The post went viral again, and once more Mirabel became the joke of the week. But something strange was happening that nobody noticed. Each time the slay queens mocked her, Mirabel's determination only grew stronger. She spent more time learning, asking questions, and studying. She even began to stay after hours, drawing designs on the ground with chalk and asking the site engineer for corrections. One evening, the site manager called her aside. "Mirabel," he said, "you're really a strong young woman. I've seen the way you work so hard, even when you're being humiliated. Most people of your gender will never want to do what you're doing right now. But why don't you go look for a job? Maybe that would do you good." Mirabel smiled faintly. "Because this is more valuable for me, sir. I know I might be suffering, but I am learning. I may not be paid much now, but one day I will use this knowledge." The manager looked at her closely, then smiled. "Then keep it up," he said. "Life never forgets those who wake up every day with strong determination. And I believe in you too," he said as he patted her gently on the back and walked away. That night, she stayed awake long after everyone slept. Staring at her notes, her heart raced. She thought about everything, how she had suffered in school and how she's suffering now, her mother's painful death, and now the humiliation she's being through. The thoughts shattered her and she cried silently into her pillow, but she told herself she must keep going. No matter what. As months passed, whispers began to spread across Lagos about a massive new real estate project. Rumor had it that the project would be worth billions, involving the construction of estates, malls, and luxury apartments. Nobody knew who the mastermind behind it was, but everyone was talking. Both politicians, businessmen, and even celebrities wanted a chance to invest. The Slay Queens heard about it too, and became overly interested. "This is it," Tasha said that evening as they sat in her living room. "If we get into this deal, our future is secure. No more relying on men, no more stress. We will not just tush, we will slay in money." Mimi rolled her hands in the air. "Yes, imagine us owning estates. People will bow when they hear our names." Kendi, ever sharp, said, "But we need to find out who is behind it. That way, we can get close and make sure we are part of the inner circle." They agreed, and from that day, their obsession shifted from mocking Mirabel to chasing the mysterious investor. But fate has a way of arranging events. One evening, as they scrolled through Instagram, they saw something unusual. A blurry photo of a woman in a suit standing beside foreign men in front of construction blueprints. The caption read, "Future is here. Watch out for the biggest project in Lagos." The Slay Queen zoomed in, but the woman's face was turned slightly away. "She looks familiar," Mimi muttered. "No," Tasha said quickly, "it can't be. Let's just wait for the unveiling." But deep inside, something about the woman's figure made their hearts uneasy. Meanwhile, Mirabel was working harder than ever, but in secret. During the day, she still carried cement and wore dusty boots, but in the evenings and inside her house, she was learning the language of business, signing documents, and slowly building a network in her own small ways. To the world, she was still the cement queen. But in the shadows, she was becoming something else entirely. The day of the unveiling finally arrived. The city was buzzing with excitement. Billboards across Lagos displayed the announcement. Unveiling of Lagos Rising, the future of real estate. Politicians, businessmen, celebrities, and socialites all received invitations. The event was to take place at Echo Convention Center, one of the grandest halls in the city. The three Slay Queens, Tasha, Mimi, and Kendi, were not invited directly, but they knew how to find their way in. With their connections and charms, they managed to secure VIP seats. That evening, they arrived dressed like royalty. As they walked into the hall, heads turned, cameras flashed, they smiled, soaking in the attention, convinced that tonight would change their lives forever. The hall was filled with those that matter in the city. Tables were arranged with fine wine, the stage decorated with screens and lights. Soon, the master of ceremony stepped onto the stage, and his voice boomed across the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "tonight is really a night that history will be made. Welcome to the unveiling of Lagos Rising, the largest real estate project this city has ever seen. Tonight you will meet the visionary behind this empire, a leader, a builder, a symbol of resilience and innovation." The crowd applauded. The Slay Queens leaned forward, their eyes glittering with expectation. The MC continued, "Please, rise to your feet and welcome the CEO and founder of Rising Estates." The lights dimmed, music filled the hall, a spotlight turned toward the stage entrance. And then, the crowd gasped, as a young, vibrant lady walked in. And it was Mirabel, not in dusty overalls, not with cement on her face, but in a sleek black and gold suit that fitted her perfectly, her hair neatly styled, her steps confident, her presence commanding. The hall erupted in gasps, some clapped in disbelief, others whispered loudly. Phones came out, cameras zoomed in. Everyone wanted to capture the moment, but none were more shocked than Tasha, Mimi, and Kendi. Their mouths hung open. Their eyes widened. For a few seconds, they could not breathe. It can't be her," Mimi stammered. Her usual arrogant voice dropped to a whisper. Tasha shook her head, her face pale. "No, it's impossible." Kendi's hands trembled as her glass slipped and shattered on the floor. But it was true, the same Mirabel they mocked, the one they called Cement Queen, was now standing before the entire city as the mastermind behind a multi-billion project. Mirabel took the microphone. She spoke calmly. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen." Her voice was firm now. Tonight is not just about unveiling a project. It is about unveiling a dream. Years ago, I was mocked for carrying cement, for working under the sun, for refusing to take shortcuts. But every block and cement I carried taught me something. Every block I lifted became part of my foundation. And today, that foundation has become an empire. The hall roared with applause. Cameras flashed as Mirabel's photo was displayed on the giant screens. Behind her were images of the estates, malls, and luxury apartments she had designed with her team. She continued, "True wealth is not built on vanity or deceit. It is built on patience, hard work, and vision. And to every young person watching tonight, never be ashamed of humble beginnings. They are the bricks that build great futures." Tears filled some eyes in the audience, but the Slay Queens could not move. It felt as if the ground had been pulled from under them. After the speech, investors rushed forward to congratulate Mirabel. Politicians shook her hand, celebrities begged for photos, journalists surrounded her with microphones. And then, almost timidly, the Slay Queens approached, dragging themselves forward. Tasha's voice trembled now as she spoke. "Mirabel, long time," she said, her voice shaking. We didn't know it was you." "Yes," Mimi added quickly. "Please, forgive us. We didn't mean the things we said. We were just joking." The almighty Kendi forced a smile. "You've done well, Mirabel. Really well. Maybe we can talk about partnering, right? We can help promote your brand online." Mirabel looked at them for a long moment. Then she smiled politely. "I appreciate your words. But no, my empire is built on truth and hard work. I cannot partner with those who mocked the very foundation it stands on." Her words were firm, but not harsh. She did not insult them. She simply walked away, leaving them standing like statues. And karma? It definitely did not wait long. Within weeks, the cracks in their lives became open wounds. Tasha's Range Rover was repossessed when she failed to pay outstanding debts. The businessman who once funded her lifestyle was jailed, and her name was dragged into the scandal. Mimi's boutique shut down after her debts piled beyond control. Creditors chased her, and she had to sell most of her jewelry to survive. Kendi's landlord threw her out of her high-rise apartment. Her social media followers began to drop when people discovered she had been living a fake life. The same internet that once laughed with them now laughed at them. Memes spread, this time with captions like, "From Slay Queen to Stray Queen." And while their world crumbled, Mirabel's empire only grew stronger. Rising estates became the pride of Lagos, and her story inspired thousands of young Nigerians who were tired of shortcuts and fake wealth. One evening, as Mirabel walked across one of her estate sites, wearing a helmet and shaking hands with workers, a journalist asked her, "Madam Mirabel, if you could send one message to the young people, what would it be?" She paused, looked at the setting sun, then replied, "Never laugh at humble beginnings. Because the stone you reject today may be the pillar you lean on tomorrow. Build with patience, build with truth, and when you rise, rise on a foundation that will never crumble." The workers cheered. Cameras flashed, and Mirabel walked on, her boots firm against the ground, no longer the cement queen, but the queen who had turned cement into gold. Guys, hard work and patience may look slow, but they build a foundation that lasts forever. Mockery, shortcuts, and vanity may shine for a while, but when the cracks appear, they collapse. Respect humble beginnings, because you never know what greatness they are carrying inside. What do you think of this story? If you were Mirabel, would you have partnered with the people who mocked and humiliated you after helping them? Or did she do well by making them taste the moral about their own actions? Have you also had this type of humiliating and ungrateful experience from your classmates or those you once helped? Tell me, how did you handle it? I'm reading everyone's story. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.